Hey, Bulls and Bears. Today we've got an update on car and truck prices and going to answer the question today. Did the automobile bubble finally pop? Well, like many other categories of goods and items, automobiles, cars, and trucks have been called being in a bubble just because of the enormous surge in prices. Normally, when you see prices rise much more rapidly than they did previously, you think there's some sort of bubble. In this case, the bubble is justified. It's not just a lot of risky loans. That's definitely part of it. That's something that's been happening. We see loans extended out to 6 and 7 years, more than at any other point in history. So risky loans are definitely part of it. A big surge in subprime loans, definitely part of it. But those things were happening even before the big surge that we saw in the last couple years. Of course, the last couple years have been factory shutdowns, closures in some cases, shipping disruptions, supply chain issues, and all the things that we've been talking about here. Now, as of April this year, compact car prices are up over 20% year over year. And it's even higher for some other types of vehicles. Let's take a look at this chart. And this is based off the Manheim Used Vehicle Index. We see the vans took the biggest jump there year over year, almost 30% uptick in prices. Now, no surprise, pickups, because of the cost of gas, those appear to be less demand, only up 0.3% year over year, looking at April of this year through or since April 2021. Compact cars up 20.3%, luxury cars 18.1%, mid-sized cars 18.4%, SUVs 14.4%. The average comes out to about 14% overall. Now, when you go back 2 years, go ahead and double most of these numbers. Many cars, many categories of these vehicles up 40, even as high as 50% and more, looking back 2 years, since right around the time of the emergence of the health crisis. Now, one of the biggest components of this rise in prices has been the lack of manufacturing and the slowdown in production, and that goes back to the chip shortage. And yes, there were other reasons, other things that slowed down manufacturing. We had the health crisis, and some auto plants had to shut down just because of the number of sick cases. But the chip shortage is the one that's still ongoing. But that seems to be reversing a bit. And we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But first, let's take a look at a chart here of used vehicle prices. And what's happened is prices for cars and trucks have declined for the past 3 months in a row. Now, you may think that's good news. You may think things are turning around, prices are going to start falling significantly. Well, not so much. They only came down a bit. Let's take a look at a chart on that. And we're still looking at the Manheim Used Vehicle Index here. And this is as of April of this year, just last month. And we see the huge run up in prices starting in late 2020, especially. And we see to the far right here, it is a bit of a downtrend finally. Now, is it just going to keep going higher? It's possible, but if everything stays like it is now, we should start seeing some minor relief and prices to continue to come down. Now, the chip shortage has not been resolved. The manufacturing is not 100% back to where it should be. In fact, we're still far from that. And we're going to talk about the timeline for chip manufacturing getting back to normal. We're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. So as you can see, compared to the huge run up that we saw, these declines in prices over the past few months, 3 or 4 months or so, is just a fraction of what we saw total in the run up of the prices. Wholesale used vehicle prices declined 1% in April from March, and now there's possibly a little more relief on the horizon. Exports of microchips took a recent jump. Let's take a look at a recent article about this. The number one manufacturer of microchips and semiconductors is Taiwan. In April, exports jumped. Outlook good, but some clouds ahead. Taiwan's exports rose for a 22nd straight month in April, So we see this steady increase ever since the emergence of the health crisis. Exports rose 18.8% in April from a year earlier. And while that rise was less than the 21.3% jump that we saw in March, it was still the third highest monthly figure on record, and that's according to the Ministry of Finance. Now, here's where we get into a little bit of the timeline here. Many companies expect the global chip shortage to last at least for the rest of the year, which will continue to fill Taiwanese semiconductor firms' order books. Now, this article also includes details about electronics components and semi-chips for those devices, but vehicle semiconductors and chips are definitely part of it. And another article also points this out: microchip shortage anticipated to last into next year. Now, something else that could possibly weigh in on the car and truck prices and cause a downslide to prices would be a auto repossession crisis, and that would be a wave of defaults on auto loans, causing a larger number of vehicles to be repossessed. And we're seeing rising interest rates now. We're seeing more layoffs with many different companies. We're seeing household debt skyrocket, and it's only a matter of time before that starts to hit, and we're going to see a wave of bankruptcies and defaults. So I think there is possibly a pending automobile repossession crisis. Now, I'm not the only one saying that. Look at this article. Consumer Watchdog fires warning shot to lenders over abusive auto repos as used car prices soar. The CFBP is monitoring car repos in the 1.5 trillion auto loan market. So that's debt, folks. $1.5 trillion in debt for all of these automobile loans. And the concern is that with the value of the car and trucks right now, that banks are going to be more likely to try to repossess these vehicles. So instead of repossessing a depreciated asset, it's now an appreciated asset. So in many cases, if they can repossess these vehicles, they're going to make their loan money back and then some, because prices may even be higher now than what they were at the time that the loan was given out. So this is going to lead to abuse, and that's what the CFBP is looking at and what they're worried about. And the concern is that some of these banks, instead of waiting 90 days or more to repossess the vehicle, they're going to start coming in after 30 days, and people are going to wake up and see the vehicle missing from their driveway. So hope everyone enjoyed this update. Please let me know what you think down in comments. Is there a pending automobile repossession crisis? Is there going to be a wave of defaults, and we're going to see a massive amount of cars come back into the dealers after being repossessed, and that will put further downward pressure on prices? Please let me know. Or do we just see more inflation of this bubble? Are they going to freeze automobile repossessions? Are they going to come in with some rescue program to prevent prices from falling? Are the powers that be going to force banks to refinance all these vehicles instead of taking the vehicles back? And if there is a crisis or a massive number of vehicles being repossessed, what does that look like? When people lose their transportation, they're likely not going to be able to get to their job. And that's going to cause a whole nother set of issues, maybe even worsening homelessness. Who knows? Please let me know down in the comments what you think about all this. Thanks for watching this report, everybody. Be well, stay safe. Bye.